While playing through the 2.1 beta, I thought it best to think about a preparation guide for the people who are interested in preparing as much as possible before 2.1 officially releases. Granted, if you want to go in completely blind with as little knowledge as possible, I recommend not watching this video, as I will be pretty much explaining the potential meta for 2.1 and all of the specific grindable changes. So sit back, grab your notebook, pen, and a shot of rum. Let's dive into what you should be preparing for. Tomes. This is going to be the most difficult to explain, so please bear with me. I will be explaining the changes in tomes as well as where would be the best place to grind them before heading into 2.1. Like, I'm not even kidding, my script is about 2.5 pages long of tome changes and information, but I'm going to try my best to explain it in the best and shortest way possible. Remember, this is only if you want to grind for tomes for preparation. Completely disregard this section if you do not give a shit. Guild Mastery Tomes. It's changed to completely stat points only. Do guild wars to grind for these / beg your guild leader or guild chief for one of these and keep it unidentified. The Tome of Slaying Masteries are switched to quality of life stat tomes. You grind raids to obtain these. Your sprint regen, your walk speed, your health regen percentage, your health regen raw, etc. Those tomes will be put in these updated slots. Grind raids for a chance for those unidentified tomes to be identified into these, but not necessary to worry about these specifically. Tome of Dungeon Mastery turns into, as stated previously, quality of life stats. Again, that would be your sprint regen, your stealing, your walk speed, your health regen percentage, sprint, etc. I was unfortunate enough for my current tomes to be rolled into stealing, but that gives you a general idea of what these could be. Tome of Loot Running Mastery is pretty simple. You grind loot running to obtain these. All loot run mastery tomes will now be turned into mythical tomes with loot bonus staying as a stat and a varied second stat. For example, mine turn into a loot bonus and healing efficiency tome. Grind loot running to obtain these. Remember to keep all tomes unidentified. Tome of Gathering Mastery turns into your main stats that they advertised for the tome changes. You grind TNA specifically if you want to prepare for these tomes. Goes without saying, these stats have the potential to be extremely important. I recommend preparing a couple before the update officially drops. My Tome of Gathering Masteries turn into mana regeneration tomes, with 8 mana every 5 seconds being the maximum that you can have. So mine turn into 7 every 5. So they are really, really good. I have a free 14 mana just because of tome change. The Tome of Weapon Mastery is arguably the most important change. They are no longer good with a question mark at the end. I've mentioned grinding raids a lot, but I haven't really explained the specific changes as to why. Most tomes can now be attained from all raids. NOTG turns into level 60 tomes, NOL turns into level 80 tomes, TCC turns into level 100 tomes, and TNA turns into level 105 tomes, kind of like it was before 2.1. They turn into the following stats: mana regeneration, raw main attack damage, raw spell damage percent, main attack percent, mana steal, and damage percent. TNA Mythic tomes have the chance to turn into damage plus elemental damage tomes, or a minus spellcast percent tome. It truly depends on what you roll, but nonetheless, keep your Mythic tomes unidentified before 2.1. Do not identify them unless you truly do not give a shit. The other raid that's the most important to note is NOTG specifically turns your tomes into walk speed, reflection, sprint regen, health regeneration percent, thorns, stealing, and weaker variations of armor tomes. So if you want any of those, go grind NOTG and keep those unidentified before 2.1. The Tome of the Armor is pretty important in a sense. They're not as good anymore because originally you can get the spell damage percent tomes, but now I actually recommend doing a couple of TCC just so that you have them. All 2.1 armor tomes will now come with a health stat and an elemental defense stat. To my knowledge, TCC is the only raid where you can attain obtain the highest roll variance of these specific tomes. So TCC is the grind spot if you want to prep for good health rolls. Obviously, the elemental defense roll really doesn't matter that much. The health is the most important stat here. Out of all the tomes that I have saved up before the beta released, I was able to roll a 342 health roll. So I'm assuming that's the max or somewhere near the max. Raids. This goes without saying, but make sure every raid is unlocked before entering 2.1. If you do not want to prepare tomes for 2.1, you can very easily grind tomes in the new update without any problem, because there is something that is very needed, and that is aspects. Aspects, as stated in my last video, are the most important change to make sure your character is up to scale with the damage/health changes. While grinding aspects, you will be receiving tomes. So it's up to you if you want to wait for 2.1 to grind tomes or not. For raid builds and for you to have the best time possible in each raid, here are my personal recommendations of what to use. If you do not have one of these classes that I mentioned, I highly recommend leveling one before 2.1 releases. For NOTG, I recommend playing Acrobat, any Shaman archetype, or Paladin Monk or Fallen Monk Bash Scream. The reason why is because the boss fight is heavily dependent on AoE damage. The more AoE damage, the faster the boss fight will go. I threw Acrobat in there because of 3 reasons. 1, Acrobat completely avoids the spikes that a Groot Slug creates on the ground that does an absurd amount of damage if it hits you. 2, there is a bug that makes Groot Slag endlessly fly upward, and Jasmine Bloom, to my knowledge, is the only thing that can damage a Groot Slag if this happens. Granted, it's a bug and it'll probably be fixed, but as of right now, an Acro is needed in a beta NOTG party. And 3, Acrobat is arguably the top 3 archetype in 2.1 right now, so please get an Acrobat if you don't have one. For Nexus of Light, I'm pretty positive anything works for Nexus of Light. I think the best thing to do for it would be a Bash Scream playstyle, Lament LB due to the water weakness that Orpheon has, and Acrobat for mobility from the lasers, consistency in the rooms, and consistent damage for the boss fight. But truly, this boss is so much better that you can run pretty much anything and have a pretty good time. But be wary though, Orpheon has a phase that creates a black hole and sucks you into the middle, so you need to make sure that you're using something that gives you enough mobility to avoid that. For TCC is not out yet. My guess would be a combination of NOL or TNA will be the playstyle here. For TNA, to be completely honest here, the recommendation for this raid is pretty much the same as current TNA. You can do C-Spam when Provoke is eventually fixed, Fallen Monk, Paladin Monk, Heavy Melee / Melee Archer, Spell Archer, Weather Trico, Grim Trico / Grim Acrobat, Standard Acrobat, and Lightbender. I've said Lightbender and Acrobat a lot. I'm being truly honest, they are the 2 insanely good archetypes for this update. Lightbender, however, is probably the best for everything now. So if you're at all confused of what to use Lightbender. It hurts to say as a personal Lightbender hater myself, but Lightbender will be and is the meta for most instances in this update. Shaman would be viable if you're very competent at flying. Watch is a bit more unforgiving in 2.1, so I recommend being careful if you are a Shaman. Annihilation. Annihilation was the biggest thing, literally and figuratively, and was in the forefront for this update. And rightfully so. It's hard if you don't know what you're doing, most difficultly soloing, and of course it drops brand new mythics and a shit ton of money and quality of life items. The meta for this is, without a shadow of a doubt, is going Lightbender. Level a mage for this update. I am begging you, if you already have a mage and do not like a Lightbender, level a separate mage solely for Lightbender activities. I promise you, you will be much more viable and valuable as a Lightbender mage than any other mage archetype. The weapons I would use would probably go down to Warp, Fatal, or Lament. Lament is the best for heals out of the 3, but the other 2 are if you want the best possible damage while being a Lightbender. Other things in Annihilation that would be fantastic would be Tank Summoner Shaman, Acolyte Shaman, Paladin Monk Bash Scream, Acrobat, or H Melee Archer. Anything is usable, of course, but those would be the best in my honest opinion. Quality of life. The small quality of life things to grind for is pretty bare bones. Make sure to have at least one of every scroll in the game. Make sure you have Beyond the Grave completed. This is the quest required to have access to Canyon of the Lost loot running camp. Runes. Runes in general have the potential to be a bit more of a pain in the ass to get, so I recommend grinding some runes before 2.1 releases just in case golden Ava feathers potentially increase in price. Now, arguably the elephant in the room is this. these all have the possibility to be changed. But I really wanted to make a video of what you should potentially be grinding for if you are in any way wishing to be ahead of the game for the release of 2.1. If there are any pressing changes, I will be posting them in the comment thread of this video, so make sure to come back if there is potentially a change. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you aren't already. It's legitimately free. Please, I beg. I have a family to feed. I'm kidding. I'm single. Take care and goodbye.